Hi everybody, it's David Porter, and today I want to talk about post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Post-traumatic stress disorder is a psychological condition. It's a psychological disorder resulting from exposure to a traumatizing event. What is a traumatizing event? A traumatizing event is an event in which you believe that your life was in danger, or that you were in danger of severe bodily harm. PTSD can occur from an exposure to one single major event like that, or PTSD can be the result of chronic stress, years of abuse, molestation. It can one rips away a large piece of you, the other wears you down over time. But the end result is you've been exposed to chronic or acute stress, and it has changed the way you look at the world. People with post-traumatic stress disorder don't feel safe. That's the shortest way to describe it. People with PTSD no longer have a basic feeling of safety in the world. Their sense of safety has been violently ripped away or gradually eroded. People with PTSD, you can't sleep. Insomnia. Lay awake until you are so exhausted that you more pass out than fall asleep. Why? Because in order to relax and go to sleep, you have to feel safe. When you do fall asleep, you have nightmares of the trauma, or themes which are reminiscent of the trauma. Pattern nightmares. And the pattern nightmares cause you to fear falling asleep, so you become avoidant of sleep. You delay sleep for as long as you can, again, until you're pretty much so exhausted you can't stay awake anymore. People with PTSD are going to have an exaggerated startle response. They are not going to do well if someone suddenly sneaks up on them or touches them unexpectedly. They are going to be hypervigilant. They're going to be watching for people getting too close to them. They're going to be scanning their environment for threats constantly. People with post-traumatic stress disorder may shrink-wrap the world around them. They may withdraw from society and do something called cave dwelling, meaning they will sequester themselves in an apartment, a trailer, a basement, a hotel room, any place where a small enclosed space which makes them feel that life is more manageable. And of course, many people will try to shut off what they're feeling with drugs and alcohol. Post-traumatic stress disorder is a chronic psychological disorder. It tends to be lifelong, although treatment can manage the worst of the symptoms and dial back the worst of the symptoms to the point where they're tolerable. Post-traumatic stress disorder can be disabling. There are people who have such severe PTSD, they are unable to leave the house. They cannot function. They cannot have a healthy relationship or hold a job. It can get worse. There is something called CPTSD, that is complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And complex post-traumatic stress disorder occurs when one insult is heaped upon another. This can result from the aforementioned gradual erosion of perception of safety and trust. Let's not forget also trust, from, again, decades of abuse and molestation. And by the way, this is how bad it can be for people with PTSD to trust. With post-traumatic stress disorder, you will doubt that the ground will be underneath your feet, that the ground will be underneath your foot when you take the next step. Nothing will feel safe. You will be in a constant or near constant state of fight, flight, freeze. Fight, flight, and freeze, as I mentioned in another video on this channel, is our emergency alarm system. When we are faced with a threat or something we believe is a threat, we will experience an adrenaline dump. Our adrenal glands sitting on top of our kidneys will suddenly release a copious amount of adrenaline, and that will increase our heart rate. Our heart rate can go from 60 to 120 in a second or two. Our respiration and blood pressure will increase. Muscles will contract. You will tense up. You may turn white from the blood vessels in your face slamming shut. Vasoconstriction. This is actually, all of these things I'm mentioning are conducive to survival in one way or another. If all of your peripheral blood vessels are constricted, there is a reduced chance of blood loss from lacerations or sharp force trauma. You will get tunnel vision, and if you look at somebody in the state of fight, flight, freeze, their pupils will be huge for the amount of ambient light. Like today is a very bright day, but if someone is in that fight, flight, freeze state, if you look at their eyes will appear almost black. Their pupils will enlarge so much it will occlude their iris, and they will experience tunnel vision. They'll only be able to see like they're looking through a straw. And time dilation. All the adrenaline will cause a sensation of time passing much slower compared to what other people around you are perceiving, and you may experience visual distortion in that objects will look much larger than what they are, or otherwise be warped or distorted. And this is that fight, flight, freeze mode. Fight, your option A is fight. You engage and overcome the threat. If you engage and neutralize whatever's threatening you, then it can't hurt you anymore. Option B is get away, flee. If you are somewhere else besides where the threat is, it can't hurt you. Option C is you freeze. This is also called neuromuscular lock or tonic immobility. And this is when somebody will not be able to move. This is commonly referred to as being paralyzed with fear. Now, under certain conditions, all three of these responses are conducive to long-term survival. Something is threatening you. Some large wild animal is trying to eat you, because again, these responses are hardwired into us for millennia, and that they've allowed us to survive. A large wild animal is trying to eat you. You fight. You make yourself a very unpleasant meal by punching and kicking and scratching and biting and hitting it with a rock or stick, until whatever it is that's trying to eat you decides this is really not worth it. I'm going to go find an easier meal. I'm not here for a fight. I'm here for a meal. Or you flee. You escape. You climb up a tree. You get away and you hide. You avoid the threat. Or if you freeze, maybe this large carnivorous animal will decide you're already dead and he wants something fresh. He isn't looking for a meal that's past its expiration date. So all three of these responses are conducive to survival under certain conditions. However, if you have PTSD, you're going to walk around in that condition all the time, and it will be exhausting. You can't get into the parasympathetic response, which is also called the rest and digest response, where everything is going to slow back down again, and you can stand down, you can rest, you can sleep. You're not going to be able to get there. Instinctively, you're going to try to get there with drugs and alcohol. At least that's a choice a lot of people make. One of my students asked a question one time, for PTSD, are there any meds that could just make you forget the trauma? Yes. It's called ethyl alcohol. I said that without sarcasm, completely seriously. It's called ethyl alcohol. People will use alcohol, and primarily alcohol, in an effort to shut off their mind, to shut down that physiological arousal. And here, let me be very clear about this. It does not work. Okay? It does not work. Yes, you can drink till you're blind drunk and blacked out, so you don't feel anything or know anything, but when the alcohol wears off, all of your problems are still going to be there. The memories will still be there. The fear and anxiety and distress will still be there. It didn't go away. And something may have actually gotten worse while you were drunk and not tending to business, not doing the things necessary to maintain your life. And another part of this is that if you drink a lot of alcohol on a regular basis, it's a central nervous system depressant, and when you take away the alcohol, you will rebound. You will experience withdrawal symptoms, which will be expressed as anxiety, restlessness, insomnia, irritability. That's tremors. That's the last thing you need. You don't need anything making your anxiety worse. So, those are a few thoughts on PTSD, kind of an overview of PTSD. Thank you for watching, and please watch for a follow-up video where I want to discuss some treatment options, because I realize what I just said is pretty dismal. Alright, everyone, thank you for watching, and please be safe and hit subscribe.